Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our next live stream. I'll be your producer for this session. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenters to answer live. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Reactor channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speakers for today. Thank you for joining.
Amazing. Thanks for that intro. I'm Renee Noble, a senior developer advocate at GitHub, and I'm so excited to be here for our fourth and final episode of our GitHub Copilot CLI hands-on series. This episode is Use MCP to connect to external systems. The final jewel in our crown of different AI tools that are all going to link together. Hopefully at the end, we'll have some time to really be linking the skills, the agents, and MCP servers all together to see how it all can fit as part of your workflow. But first, I do want to acknowledge the lands that I'm joining on today, the Bidjigal lands of the Darug people here in Sydney. And also introduce Dave Glover, who's joining us on deck as my co-host today. He'll be in the chat and also bringing his wisdom about MCP servers. Dave, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, hi everybody. Like Renee, I'm based in Sydney. Similar kind of roles. We roles to reach out to customers and developers, and we're developers ourselves, and we play around with all the stuff. Sometimes we're learning just the same time as you guys are, but we've got a reasonable amount of experience certainly on the MCP area. So as I put in the chat, do feel free to ask questions, and I'm kind of mostly moderator. And welcome, I see a few familiar faces from the last one we did. So thanks for joining back again. And I guess let's start.
Ooh, okay, fantastic. Do drop in the chat where you're joining us from in Australia or in the world. We love to know where you are coming from. It's very excited to have people all around the world joining us on our adventures. So yes, as I said, this is the fourth episode of this series, and we've already covered chapters 1 through 5. So we'll be covering chapter 6 today on MCP servers. And let me just double check this is the correct course because I'm not seeing all of my notes. Yes, it is. Great. I've just not updated this slide to say you should do chapters 1 to 5 if you haven't been up to them before. It's a good time, lots of good stuff to learn that do fit in alongside our MCP server stuff. But if you haven't done them, no worries. You can catch up on them later and you'll pick up some of those skills along through today's session. If you're not done chapter 0, however, that's a hot one to follow up on. That will make sure you know how to get GitHub Copilot CLI set up on your machine so you're ready to go, and how to make sure you're logged into Copilot with a suitable account so you have access there, but you can use the free tier for that. So no worries if that's for all you're going on. That's perfect for this course. The course that we are doing is the Copilot CLI Beginners course that we put out about a month ago. Shout out to my colleague Dan Wallin, who I got to write this course with, which was really exciting. The course looks like this. We are doing, I should go on to chapter 6 where we'll be starting. There is this version. There is also the GitHub repo version. They're the same course, and you will download the GitHub repo as part of the course to be able to do it. But yes, this one kind of looks more like a website, which is sometimes handy for visual processing. So we've got that going on today, and you can follow along on either of those. We'll only be doing a few parts of it because there is lots of stuff in there, and we only have an hour to cover all of chapter 6 and maybe a little bit of chapter 7 as well. But yeah, lots of stuff to do there, as well as doing the assignment at the end, which really helps you transfer all of your new skills into a real world project that we've been building up along throughout the course of all of the chapters in the course. So today is chapter 6, connect to GitHub databases and APIs. We're going to learn how MCP servers work. We're going to use the built-in one that GitHub Copilot already has access to the GitHub MCP server. So we will be using that. We'll be adding some other MCP servers through the config files that we can use and seeing how we can use multiple servers together. If we have some time at the end, we'll have a little bit of a taste of Chapter 7, where we combine agents and skills and MCP servers and all of the tools within the CLI itself to be able to do some of those bigger workflows that build up a bigger context that allow you to do real-world cool stuff. So without further ado, let's jump into Chapter 6 and learn about MCP servers. Yes, because that's a word that's been going around a lot. MCP, what is it? Is it hard? Is it complicated? What does it mean? And we've got an analogy here for you that you're probably very familiar with, especially if your laptop is having fewer and fewer ports on the side every single day. Every time you get a new one, you're like, oh, you've got even less places for me to plug things in. How am I going to plug in this HDMI cord, this USB-A dongle, USB-A stick, and an Ethernet port? That's a bit tricky. And that's all going to be on you to buy all of the adapters to fit them into your computer. That's going to be expensive. You've got to go to shops. You've got to find the right things. And you're going to end up with a pile of different dongles that only do one job each. That's a bit annoying. So that's kind of where we would be and where we were before we had MCP as a standard, which kind of unified everything and says, hey, this is the way that you should connect to another data resource or external resource or tool. And this is how we're all going to do it, which means they're very portable between different systems. So in our analogy, it's like all of our things ship with a dongle that fits all of them. So maybe you have a dock or something, and it's got a USB-C cord, and that plugs into your laptop's USB-C port. So that's our MCP unified strategy. We're like, okay, everything is MCP now. That means my app will use MCP to integrate some of its external tools like Zava in this instance with whatever AI agentic loop that I'm using. And Zava is always providing that through that unified protocol. It's like, okay, if I want someone to be able to use my different APIs, data sources, etc., I should put them out with this standard protocol so everyone can easily pick them up. So instead of me buying my 3 different Zava dongles and products and cables, Zava is going to give me the way to connect through one unified thing. We've got the Zava dock, and we can plug in with USB-C because everyone has agreed USB-C is the way to go. And I don't have to go and get a million dongles, or in the dev analogy, I don't have to build an endpoint for connecting to the Zava database, to the Zava API, and to the Zava this, that, and the other. Everything's simplified with our protocol, whether that's MCP or USB-C in our analogy. It just makes everything simpler, and it means we can use this Zava dock with different laptops, or we can use MCP servers with different apps. So yeah, that's kind of like the analogy I like to think about it. Dave, do you have any thoughts on this analogy?
I would say like the computer industry has historically always come up with standardized abstractions. And that's really all this is. So if you've done anything with databases, you'll know that there's like an ODBC driver for open database connection, I think it was called. And it just meant that you could go and build an application and you could go and plug in different databases and you wouldn't have to go and rewrite your code. Or REST APIs, again, standard sort of abstraction. So all this is just a standard abstraction that agents can reach out in a standardized format and grab data from an external source. So that's kind of how I think about it. But yeah, USB-C is a great analogy. But the computer industry has been doing it really ever since there has been a computer industry of coming up with standardized protocols for all this stuff to hang together.
Yeah, amazing. We love to make it simple and portable. We don't like to do things twice. If I do it for one app, I'm not doing it again. We just want one and done. It's for us. So let's see how that's done. We're going to start by using the built-in MCP tool for GitHub, which you might have actually used already, and maybe you didn't even notice it. So to start off with, I'm going to just start by running what's going on with GitHub issue number 80. Let's zoom that in a bit. Don't use any tools. The problem is that the CLI keeps getting better and better. So the part of this course is to use just like to see what happens without MCP, but it's so clever that it will either go just like, oh, I know I'm going to use GitHub for this, and I'm just going to activate the MCP server, and you're not going to know it. Or if it doesn't do that, it's going to go, oh, I'm not going to use MCP. I'm going to use the GitHub CLI tool myself. And then I'm going to look up and do an API request if you have the GitHub CLI tool installed. So if you want to do it with absolutely no tools to see what it's like, you have to say it now because it just wants to help you out. So I've done this and it's like, oh, actually, we don't have any info about this because I haven't used any tools. So that's what that would look like if you didn't use any tools. Instead, I'll say this, not forbidden from using tools. Tools can be things like skills or other, APIs and stuff like that. And it is using the wrong repo. I must have cloned this myself. So let's get that other repo up so it knows where to look, not in my personal clone of this. So we are using the actual GitHub one. GitHub Copilot CLI is the right repo. And then we'll see what it does here. And we're going to ask it in a second, did you use any tools to do that? Cool. And it's going to show us, hey, this was an issue. And here what we were asking it to do. And it's actually already been fixed, which is cool. And these are the files that were updated. So it's done this. And we're like, okay, how's it actually gone and done this? Because you might be like, oh, I must use the MCP server for that. But I'm going to ask it, did you use any tools to do that? Because recently I actually installed the GitHub CLI for another stream I was doing. And it's like, oh, cool. Now when I do this command, it's different than when we were writing the course because it has access to the CLI that I hadn't previously installed. So yes, it's using this tool from the GitHub API. So it's not actually using the MCP server at this time because it doesn't need to. But to see, firstly, let's see that we do in fact have the MCP server installed. So I'm going to write /MCP, and then we have some options what we can do there. This one I'm going to write show to show us what things are installed. So I have GitHub MCP server already part of Copilot CLI as it comes out of the box, which is really convenient because I think we as developers, if there's one thing that we're doing, no matter what, it's GitHub. And committing things to GitHub. So let us ask a bit of a harder question that isn't possible to do with just the API. I'm going to ask it to show me the reviews on PR42, actually, and which ones are resolved. That should be PR80. Let's do it again. And see what it thinks about this. And because, yeah, there aren't necessarily GitHub API endpoints for everything. But with MCP, it does have ability to look at more different parts that we don't have exposed API endpoints for. So we can see that 2 of these issues weren't addressed, even though they were left by the automatic reviewer, and even though the PR has been merged. So that might be something you want to run to see, oh, we've finished this one off. Are we all clear on the things that were raised? So that's something we can do with MCP, which is pretty cool. And that's straight out of the box, which is really handy. Yeah, any other thoughts on GitHub MCP, Dave, before we move on to adding other ones?
No, just I would just say, for me, my own personal experience, my use of GitHub is actually quite limited down to almost push and pull and things like that. And sometimes obviously need to do branching or merge conflict, and it can be really helpful as long as you pay attention to what it's doing and make sure it asks you what confirmation. It's been a huge bonus for me to really understand a bit more about how GitHub actually works. So that's what I really enjoy about it.
Yeah, when I was looking for good examples to give in this live stream for using MCP compared to just the API endpoints, I saw some really good ones, which were give me, the last 5 commits, or more give me the last 5 commits that touched this file. which is really convenient because sometimes I'm just like, how did this file get to be like this? And I don't want to have to be searching through each commit, being like, did you touch this file? Did you touch this file? That's really arduous. So having something like this to quickly be able to process all of that on endpoints that don't necessarily exist in the API is so handy.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who's done this, but maybe I've checked in a key by accident. And it's really helpful because you're kind of slightly panicking. You say, oh no, I've checked in a key. And these agents really help you kind of say, identify exactly where it is, clears it out. So you know it's been properly removed out of the repo. So it's not sitting in the history and things like that, which is a little bit traumatic at times.
A little bit traumatic. You're right with that one. Okay, let's have a look at adding and using MCP servers then. So this might sound like, oh, well, that GitHub one was so easy to use, but how can I get my own ones in there? That sounds tricky. But the thing is, it's actually really easy, especially to connect to an existing MCP server. It's really a matter of giving it some info or just in the form of JSON on where do you get it? How do I run it? Like, is it going to run on my machine? Is it going to run on the cloud? Like, there's lots of different options there. Then also saying how an agent can run it. So you're using a command like npx. And then any arguments and tools you might need to do it. So arguments for interacting with this one might be some different, a name, a package, etc. And tools might be like all of the tools or some specific tools that you want to give it access to, but you don't want to give it access to all of the tools, like your file system or something else. So there's lots of different configuration you can do in terms of your permissioning. And it's also really easy to do to just add this to your collection. And then it will just show up in that list that we had when we did MCP show, and it can automatically be picked up. So you don't have to explicitly say, use this MCP server. It just joins the agentic loop, and that can be called on when the agent kind of thinks that it's necessary to pull this kind of data or connect to this endpoint or this service. So let's give that a go and add some files to, gotta find one of my many windows. Let's pull up this one. Here we go. Give me a new screen. There we go. This will do. Oh, it's very black. I don't know why it's so black. We'll get a new screen. That'll be fine. Interesting. Let's get that one back up. It's disappeared because I put it into the weird black screen. I thought it was just going to overlay it. I'm like, I don't know why it's black. That's fine. 1 second, everybody. Give me my course back, please. Copilot CLI for beginners. Okay, cool. Let's move you across to the not weird black screen. And we're going to move the weird black screen way over there, never to be visited again. Okay, cool. So here we go. Let's jump into our file window here. And we're going to be looking to see if we already have that's in our home folder. Sorry, we should be looking to put it in the project folder, I believe, because you can install these either at the system level or at the project level. So let us put that into. Are you installing things at your system level, Dave, or are you putting them in your project level, would you say?
Mostly I put them on my project level.
Yeah, cool. So that should be in our, because I realized I've practiced on my system level, but would you do it into, where would you put yours? I would put it into GitHub, maybe? Is that where you would be looking to put it?
If you're looking at the system level, the project level.
Project level. Let's do MCP. There we go. Samples. We've got one in samples already.
Cool.
Let's go and put it in there. And here we go. We've already got the finished one in here. So hopefully I might need to pop that up into my higher level one. to make sure that is accessible here. But we can see we've actually gone, and this is covered in the course. We've added the GitHub one's already in here to show you how it's done and what it gets access to, like your environment variable here for my GitHub token. But we can also add this one which is a file system access one, so it can read through your files, which is probably really handy if you are working with files like developers do all of the time. And that gives you more ability to search more thoroughly and integrate that data in a more context carrying way. And then we've got context 7 here, which provides a way to connect with docs and things that will show you best practices on how to do different things. So we've got this one here, and let us copy this, I think, across to, I'll actually copy it all and we'll put it in my shop level one, I think. No, we'll put it in .co. Yeah, I guess this instruction's all telling you how to put it into your global one. So let's do as it does, unless you have a recommendation on where you would put it, Dave, in your project settings.
Oh.
You put it in .github? Seems like a good place.
I mostly do it, of course, in VS Code, in which case I put it in the .vs Code.
Let's
folder,
get a .vs Code. I guess if you're using the VS Code extension.
Yeah, so that's not what you want for this.
No, that's okay. Let's pop it in here and see what happens. So we'll make a new file called MCP config.json, and we'll stick this in here, see what it does. Otherwise, I'll just do it at my global level. And then let us go across here, and we're going to do, firstly, MCP reload, just as we did with our agents and skills. And then we'll do /MCP show, and cross our fingers. It's not there, so we are going to put it at the global level. Okay, and then let's just do that. Let's just ask Copilot CLI to do it, actually. Create a new MCP config file at the global level. And then let me add content to it. Hopefully this way it's going to know about it, which would be great. Yeah, I like to do this if I'm unsure on how to do something, especially in this terminal. This is a great way to find out and learn a bit more. So let's do this. So we're making a new directory. It needs to write to something outside of my directory. So this is my user level on my computer. Great. Yes, we want to do that. So it's creating the basis of the file. And now I am going to say open that file in VS Code, and then I'll copy the stuff across. And we could like open it in Nano or something in here, but I think it's going to be visually easier to do this. Fantastic. Cool. I'm just going to replace all of that with my new thing. Great. It's been saved. Oh, it's called mcp.json, not mcp.config -config, but that's fine. Okay. Let's see. We get FCP reload here. Reloaded one server connected. And let's find out. I feel like that's only going to be the GitHub one. MCP/MCP. Show. Fingers crossed. Let's just ask it. Where is my new MCP server connections we just made? Explain yourself, Copilot CLI. I added things. I added them. It's saying it's empty, which it's not. I put stuff in it. It should say, let's find out what happens if I dump all this stuff in here. Cool. Yeah. Fingers crossed it'll understand. Yes, that's what I've added. I need to restart Copilot CLI. I will or start a new session. Okay, let us start a new session. And now we'll do /MCP. So to start a new session, I just did /new, and now we'll do MCP show again. I guess we're just going to close. We're just going to close it, and we're going to come back in, and then hope that it will work. And okay, let's go back into Copilot. Yes. Let's go again, giving permission to access this folder. And let's see, it's still only got one MCP server. Interesting. MCP show. There are my MCP servers located in, what do we call it? mcp.json, located at the user level in mcp.json. I don't know if it's upset because it made a file that isn't mcp-config.json. I think it should be more compatible. Yes, it is there. There are also project level configurations in .copilot MCP, which take precedent in your root project. Okay, let's open the project level ones and we'll see what's in there. Maybe that's why it is thinking that they don't exist. So I can edit. Okay, let's get it going. Any questions in the chat while we get this happening, Dave?
Yeah, I'm actually answering. So a question came up, which I've just been putting in the chat, is let's say you had to pass a key in a header, for example, an MCP server, and inside the definition for the JSON definition for the MCP server that you're going to be for like a custom one, there's an opportunity to go insert it into a header. You typically go and push it into a header. And then on the MCP server, the other side, you'd go and pluck that key out of the header and then go and compare it with some key that's in some backend data store. So you'd kind of do it along those lines. And I tried to paste in an example into the chat.
Yeah, there is a length limit on things, which makes it quite difficult.
Yeah, chat does not like pasting in JSON. Sorry about that, folks, if you're just thinking there's a whole lot of junk in there. But anyway, that's the basic idea. Hopefully, does that kind of make sense? Who asked the question? It was, is it Bakuvuru? Something like that. So that's the, with the dog image. Yeah. Now's your chance. We have an amazing, okay, cool, that was live ready. Yeah, so please do ask great questions while this is moving forward. While you're sorting that out.
Yes, here we go.
Do you want me to chat?
Yeah, go ahead, Dave, while I make sure it's working, because this wasn't part of the script. If that wasn't apparent to everybody.
So we just before the session started, we were just talking about what are the kinds of MCP servers. I was just seeing that someone just commented about putting them into environment variables. Yeah, so that's the way I tend to do it. And I do my absolute utmost to use .env files and use Python.NET, the Python .env support. And I make sure I obviously do a git ignore on my .env files. And those are kind of processes, or I go and put them into environment variables. But we have processes internally that go and scan anything. And if you've checked a key in by accident, our manager tends to know about it pretty quickly. So we're talking a bit about things, so MCP servers that we use, that I would personally use. So for example, I was thinking, if I'm kind of actively building something, let's say I'm building an application which wants to use a Postgres database. There's a Postgres MCP server that you can go and use, and you could have the agent go and build your code and then call an agent to go and update the schema inside your Postgres database or migrate your database schema. That would be And as I said, as I'm saying this, and actually the last time I was doing some more Postgres, there wasn't really this concept around, but that would save you a lot of time. Or how many times have you written some code, or maybe you've got an agent got some code, and you might be running unit tests, but you might also want to have an MCP server just go and validate that the data actually is sitting in the database as you would expect it to be. And again, you could be using an agent for that. You could unit tests and things like that. So those are kind of a couple of examples. Kind of going more into production kind of data. We just actually run some workshops for the AI tour that's just been going around the worldwide. This is not so much in the dev environment, but if you're building out agents, building out an agent solution, an agentic solution, then obviously things like MCP servers are really key to that whole experience. So we're wanting agentic solutions for our development lifecycle. But obviously MCP servers play a huge part in a real life application where you've got an agent that wants to be able to reach out, where you've got an agent, which is the large language model there. It's got some instructions, telling the context of how you want this agent to behave, which is kind of a bit like a skill, I suppose, in the world of the Copilot CLI. And you've got tools, and MCP servers kind of fit into that area, which can reach out and go and grab data sources. So it might be a database, could be a REST endpoint. I was playing around a bit with Google have a travel MCP server. So if you want to go and find out what flights are available and things like that, and best prices, there's services out there for to be able to go and integrate those. How are you going?
It thinks it exists. It's being a little temperamental. This goes straight to the product team. Why is it here, product team? Me specifically. Let's find out. MCP.
It's a Friday afternoon. See how it goes. Otherwise, I'll keep talking. I've got another example.
You keep talking, Dave. Give us your wisdom.
So and now there might be a few of you out there who like building devices. So it's for me, it's kind of my hobby. I like building stuff on Raspberry Pis or microcontrollers or things like that. And there might be some folk listening here. And one of the things that it's really fun, but if you've ever done device development, you'll also know it can be ridiculously frustrating as well. And I've been building out some device drivers for some LCD or TFT screens. And the way that I'd been doing it was I'd trying to get the device driver working for the screen. And what I did is I'd take a photo on my phone, copy it onto my computer, copy it into the agent, and say, hey, agent, this is what's going on. Can you fix this, please? Can you please try and help me fix this? And that, as you can imagine, was quite a laborious process. So what I did is I actually built an MCP server, and then I basically have this mount for my phone, and it uses continuity camera on macOS and my iPhone. And I wrote a camera MCP server. And then I basically tell my agent what I'm trying to build and give it the instructions about how to go and control this device. And then the agent can go and build the code. It can go and flash the code onto the device. And then I can tell the agent, as part of these sets of instructions, say, hey, look, once you've deployed that to the device, wait 10 seconds or whatever time it is, and then take a photo of the screen and then have a look at that and see, does that match? And I gave an example of what I was expecting out of from the display. And it was fascinating for things that have been taking me, I must admit, it was my third attempt to try and get this particular device working. And what I did with giving the agent some decent instructions about how this screen worked, giving the agent kind of like the end result, I want it to look like this, or it should be looking roughly like this, and that's a sort of the success. And then giving the agent access to my camera to take photos. I literally walked away into the other room, and I could hear the camera firing off every couple of minutes. And it would go and take a photo of the device, and I could hear that it kind of hadn't sorted out. I walked back in about 10 minutes later and actually figured it out. And I thought, wow, that's a really cool use. For me, it wasn't a particularly obvious use until I was trying to solve this problem. So when you're thinking about your MCP service, just think quite broadly as to what they can be. Yes, it can be all software, but this was a great example of, I wanted some visual stuff, but it could be maybe your application listens for an alarm or a sound or whatever it is, some things like that. And is it playing the right frequency, or a whole range of things out there that you can be doing that's not just in the kind of abstract software world, but also can be some things that are happening in the physical world. And you can build MCP servers around that to go and grab data. So that's kind of things. What's the demarcation between an MCP server and skills? Oh, okay. So skills are kind of repeatable actions. So we talked about this a couple of days ago. So if you think about when you're controlling an agent, or when I'm building code, I will tell the agent, hey, I'm building some C# application or C application, because I do a lot of C. And I need it to conform to the standard, and I want these naming conventions, and don't use names that are too long and things like that. And I want security to be done in a certain way and things like that. And what I've been traditionally doing, and I suspect most people work like this way, you'll sit there and you'll type in that kind of complete set of instructions how you want the agent to behave. And we're human, and of course, the next time we go and type that in, we don't type it, and then we're starting on a new project or things like that, and we're not consistent, or we forget something or whatever it is. So a skill basically enables you to go and set up a list of could be standards, could be coding standards, could be security standards, it could be naming convention standards that you want to be using these projects. And then that skill becomes repeatable. And you say, hey, look, I'm working on this C# project, and the agent figures out, I've got a skill around that, and it'll go and look at the skill, and it'll look at all your coding standards. And that's great, because now you can start sharing that out with other folk in your team, and now you're all working to the same standards. So that's kind of what a skill is. But an MCP server is something which enables you to reach out and go and grab additional data from an external service. So it's augmenting the amount of it's augmenting the data that you've got inside your application to go and start making to give to the large language model for it to start driving that whole agentic flow and things like that. So so they are radically different things. One, skills is just this kind of stuff that just makes it repeatable. MCP is more kind of grabbing external data sources and things like that. So NPX CTX7 setup. Okay. FYI, I found out today, Xcode 26.3 uses a setting to expose. Yes, this exposes coding agents to the Apple MCP servers. Yeah, so I use that. So I use the Copilot. What's it called? It's called GitHub. Let me remind myself. So if you're doing any, it's called GitHub Copilot for Xcode. And yes, you can go into Xcode. So what you'll find, by the way, is that GitHub, the GitHub Copilot, is available for a lot of different IDEs. So you'll see that it's there for Xcode. So I'm using it for Xcode. I was playing around with, who's the organization that does the JetBrains? They have an IDE, nice IDE for doing .NET. Again, they've got you'll find Copilot there, obviously VS Code and various other IDEs. The way Xcode do it is that they actually expose out the developer environment as an MCP server, and that the way that the GitHub Copilot for Xcode works, it's talking to that Xcode as a Xcode IDE as an MCP server. And that's cool because invariably, if you're a developer, you're going to be building, if you're building Mac apps or iPhone or apps or things like that, you're going to be using Xcode, and you want to go and use GitHub Copilot. So you can use that there, and you've got a set of models there. And invariably, you want to go and build some backend services that you want to go and deploy out to Azure, for example, in which case you can be using VS Code, and you've got the Copilot CLI or the Copilot extension for VS Code, and you've got the same set of models. You're paying one subscription, so you're not having to have lots of different places and different models and things like that. So that to me is really cool. And I thought the JetBrains, and it's escaping me now, the name of the IDE. I'm sure that someone can tell me in the chat. It's called Rider. That's right. Yep. So there's a Rider IDE, and it's really nice. Yeah. So IntelliJ. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. That's the one. Thank you. So yeah, you'll find that lots of different IDEs all have GitHub Copilot in it. Actually, I was playing around with one of the things in the MCPs. If you look at the MCP services inside the Copilot CLI, if you go into show the MCP servers that are available, you'll also see there is one in there, which I think is called desktop and memory. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, what that's about. And you can actually enable it. And I think it does say enable at your peril. Yeah, it's that first one there. If you can see that one in teal, computer use
Yes.
memory. If you're building an application which has got a GUI on it, so let's say you're building something with Xcode, you can, and you could build a Mac OS app inside VS Code. I do that quite often. Or you could be building a Windows one as well. With that desktop enabled, it enables the agent to basically look at the GUI of that application. And so you can be setting, maybe you've got a PowerPoint, or someone in design group has said, hey, look, I want the UI to look like this. And you can have the agent go and check out the GUI, launch that, go and check out the GUI, and then iterate that, and until it gets to the design that you've come up with. So things like that are super useful. But if you go and look at the guidance for it, it says you probably don't want to have it enabled all the time, but if you've got specific use cases, that can be really nice as well. So yeah, cool. How you getting on?
Oh, I'm having trouble. I don't know what's going on, but yes, it is good to note. Yes, we can see that we do have the ones that are disabled here and the two that are ticked, which are enabled. So we've got GitHub MCP server and IDE. But yes, I'm not entirely sure why it's not loading, but it is clear that things have deviated potentially from what we had when we wrote the course, which is interesting. No, I think, no, it should be the same. It just thinks that it wants to load it from, Copilot CLI seems to think that it wants to load it from config.json, but I'm not sure that that's true. It may or may not have been updated since then.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I did it, there should be a folder in your user folder, your home folder. When I did it, I went and created that folder.
Yes, .copilot in tilde. And we'll get a full list on that. There it is. MCP.json is in there. So let's get a normal. Let's get a classic. Let's get a classic normal LS going on without any processing. So as we learned in episode 1, Aaron showed me how you can do just a regular command with an exclamation mark in there, or you can use a / command as well if you want to do something like ls.
So someone just said you can do /mcp space add and fill out the Q&A form.
Well, let's do that, because this obviously is not, loving me today.
Look at that.
Oh, it's beautiful. Excellent tip. Thank you for help in the comments, because I'm on Struggle Street here while we're live on air, which is fun as always to be here and do that with you all. But let's get on with it. Server type. What goes into server type? Are you a local? How do I? Oh no, we can. Yes, local is automatically connected. We can use npx. Thank you. I have not used this format before, but this is also a good way to environment variables. We don't take any of those tools. I guess we take arguments.
Probably just star.
Do we want to put star in here? That's fine. Whether I don't know where we can put the arguments in because we need to pass in -y and model context protocol server file system. So this might be interesting. Command to start the server. Maybe that's where we're popping this in. But tab to navigate. Can I go back? Yes, I can. So we've got command is npx. So I'm not sure where we're going to pop in these arguments. But
hang on a sec. I'll see if I can figure it out.
Yes. Once I enter this, I don't know how. I guess we can delete it and we can always start again. Yes, I've got arguments that I wish to pass to you, my friend. And we did see the other one had environment variables passed to it, which was interesting. Thanks for bearing with us all and providing your both emotional and technical support in the chat.
Yes.
We appreciate that, being on this journey with us, because these tools are very new and we always appreciate your feedback on them as well. So we can pass it back to the product team, whether you want to sing them praises or you want to be like, hey, this could be better, to help you as your developer experience, because that's really what they're for. And if they're not helping you, then they're not doing their job yet. So
I think looking at that says command to start the server, and they give an example there, Python-m my server, which is so I presume you can pass that into npx in the same way.
Yes, that makes sense. So I could give it the dash. Yeah, let's give it the -y there, and then so we'll put in -y. And then all of the bits. Take in this file system and then dot, and that's hopefully going to do the trick. Let's give it a go. And Control S to save. Can do. Oh, not that save. Okay. Are we in? We're loading. It's flashing, everybody, and it's dancing for us. It's in, everybody.
Yay.
Mr. Bark,
Mr. Bark, thank you very much. That was cool. I hadn't seen that before. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, that was good. I liked how we could go up and down in it and then figure it out along the way. This is better than in episode 2, where I wanted to add a skill and I got too excited when we were copying from Awesome Copilot. I know as an agent. And I put all of the text for the skill description into the name, and I had no way to go back. It's here. You've done it, only with the help of our lovely viewers.
Thank you so much.
Now we can do the rest of the stream in our remaining 10 minutes. But yeah, this is what it's really like to be a developer advocate. And it's a lot like being a developer, but also everyone in the world can watch you on video later. So it's pretty cool.
And so someone asked, is this live? it's
you didn't think it was live? Yeah, no, we wouldn't put this out unnecessarily. Or like maybe we would, to show the real life of developer advocates. So we've got our file system set up now as well. I don't know if I dare also do the one for the context 7. Let's play with the file system first. So we can actually do some stuff as part of this episode, which that'd be really cool to use our custom server as part of this. So we're going to ask how many Python files are in the book app project directory, and we can see it's the file system MCP server loaded. Little thing. I feel like Copilot CLI knows of the struggles that we've had here, and it wanted to celebrate. So that's good. And we can see all the files that are in here, which is pretty cool. We can get what's the total size of the data in the JSON file that we use for this without, I don't know, it has about 5 books in it, guys. So, you know, you could have more in there. 3 files found. It's going to be like 2 bits. Oh, and then more copies of it. So I guess, yes, we've got various copies of this file around. We've got 503 bytes for this because it's got, you know, all of like 43 characters in it. And there's versions in the JavaScript and C versions of the project. That's right. We can do this project in Python, C, and C# and JavaScript if those are your languages of choice to play around with. And we can also ask, find all the functions that don't have type hints. Oh, I've highlighted a thing and it's copied it. That's okay. Find all the functions that don't have type hints in the book app. Cool. Okay, so we've done a few fun things there, which is cool. And yeah, so it's able to see all of those as well as inspect inside all of those, which is really cool. Whether that's searching with our MCP server or also using our typical tools like grep and, you know, pattern matching with regex throughout. So it's a great way to add more stuff. And not only do you get the extra features of the MCP server, but you get the combination of how they can be used with your typical, terminal features as well, which is really like empowering to be able to do different stuff. So we've used a custom server. We've heard about Dave's various adventures in custom servers, which is pretty cool as well. Whenever you talk to Dave, he'll be like, I've got a cool thing to show you, Renee, and it's very exciting. And he's got a gadget there. But yes, this one with the camera was very, very cool to hear about. So to talk about what using multiple servers might look like now that we've added one, because it's not just about using one server at a time, we can also use multiple ones at the same time. And it's not necessarily you being like, I want you to use X and Y together. If you are building that context over a longer period of time, for instance, you might be asking to get a GitHub issue, and then that will like be like, okay, cool. What's this about? Okay, we had number 80. It was about, we needed to add some features around fixing the MCP server documentation. And maybe we need to do that again because obviously it didn't quite work for me today. So we'll try and get that course, make sure it's ready for everybody else to tackle it. Or maybe it's, just my computer sometimes, hates, just wants to have fun live on air. So we get the issue information through the GitHub MCP server. Then we can use the file system MCP server to look through the code, find all the relevant files as well. And then if we added our context 7 MCP server, which maybe we'll do, we have 6 whole minutes, we could then ask about the best practices. And it would go, oh, cool, I know where to go for the best practices. And we're going to go to context 7 and ask for this React framework, up-to-date way that we should be doing stuff. And gets all that together and goes, okay, how am I going to fix this bug that's been raised in this issue? I know which files are impacted, and I know what changes would be best to make. So then using Copilot CLI or just through using that Copilot agentic loop, it can then generate, analyze that, generate the fix as well, and then generate tests to make sure that we stay, in check into the future. And finally, using the GitHub MCP server again, back to the start, we can make that PR just like we did in, I think it might have been episode 1, which is really cool to show, how we've got this full loop and we've got all these tools at our disposal, just like when we are developing with without our AI companion. We use all these processes ourselves, but these are all looped in to inform our agentic coding experience now, which is pretty cool. So to briefly mention how this all comes together, and you can do much more of this if you go and do Chapter 7 yourself. It really goes through a few different multi-step functionality pieces, a lot like this one we've just said here, but also leveraging agents and skills, because not only can we use things like Context 7 to bring in that information, but you might also, like when we went through the skills, have a checklist for these are what we do in our team to ensure compatibility with our best practices and what we do across the whole company. You might also be like, oh, we always, before we push anything, we run this agent that we've designed as a reviewer for front-end code or design features and things like that over your new PR before it goes up. So this is how it all plugs in together. We've got our agents, which are those personas that we can also provide with access to things like skills that will be like, okay, I'm in my front-end reviewer agent mode. I have access to a skills checklist that can run through things, and I have access to the MCP server, which might link out to Context 7, which has the most up-to-date documentation for React. So Copilot CLI runs them all in a loop, essentially going, okay, I'm this agent right now. I'm really focused on code quality and code tidiness. I have skills to ensure that we're following this schema that we mandate at this organization, and I can check that against MCP servers for Context 7, and I'm looping through to make sure that this is all consistent and all working together as one for a given task and a given prompt that I, as the developer has said, hey, agent, help me with this. And that could be your standard Copilot CLI agent or your front-end reviewer, your security reviewer, whatever you've got going. And that could be linking into whatever skills that you've provided. And that could include things like your database checker that Dave's mentioned, or whatever you come up with, really. So that's how they all fit together. Do you have anything to add on that, Dave?
Not especially, but so someone asked a question here, which is some companies block using MCP for security reasons. Are there any improvements, new features or options? So are there any that make it easier for companies to use MCP? So I think particularly around authentication and things like that. So I don't know if it's an area that you know particularly much, but there is definitely work going into this space around improving MCP servers in terms of authentication with them. So I guess there's two things. Do you want people randomly calling MCP servers, which you don't necessarily know what they're going to be doing? So you probably don't. So I guess what organizations are doing, they're putting blanket blocks in there for MCP. But there's definitely work going on around authenticating into an MCP server. There's Entra support, there's passing keys and headers and things like that. But there's definitely work going on in this space. But you're quite right to be thinking about security in this world, because this is definitely an evolving space. And you can see some things where things have gone out pretty quickly, and then people said, oh gosh, how are we going to secure this? Or there can be issues. So yes, I think I don't think I can say too much more than that, really. That there is a lot of work going into this in terms of locking these things down from a security perspective, and people are aware, people do understand the issues, and there is work definitely going on to address these things. But I'm sorry, I can't tell you off the top of my head exactly where that's at. But yeah.
Yeah, I think, watch this space. MCP was released less than 18 months ago as a protocol. So we're all still catching up, and everyone's racing to make sure that everything's available, like their API endpoints, their others tooling is available in the MCP. And a lot of those are genuine people who want to make sure that their services are available to others. But at the same time, we don't have all the security infrastructure that we might have around classing API endpoints. So, and there are a lot of people out there who are looking to use it as a way to do, things that aren't great So there, are people seeking security vulnerabilities. So of course, keep up the good work in terms of looking for ensuring that you are doing security. You can always configure your own internal MCP server. And that might be a way if you're like, I want to use MCP servers and maybe that's potentially allowed by your organization. It's likely external MCP servers are, probably the target of like that rule, because much like you wouldn't just connect to any random API endpoint or let any random script run on your machine, ensuring that you're protected against, vulnerabilities and, security, attacks. Is super important in this landscape at the moment.
Now, someone asked a question about, will this course cover ACP when we use ACP versus MCP? And no, there's no ACP. And for the folk who are not sure what ACP, it's the Agent Communications Protocol. And that role, that protocol is more for agents calling agents. So it's agent-to-agent protocol. And it's not covered in this workshop. And again, that's a bit of an evolving space as well, but maybe that's something we can think about, creating some work, some content around that. And actually there's a kind of a cool analogy here, and I did a quick look up for some analogies. So we talk about MCP, the analogy is the USB-C protocol, and you'll find that analogy across the internet. And the ACP one was defined as like the telephone network for AI. I thought an interesting analogy. Okay, so different networks and be able to, I guess, switch across from one network to another network. So letting multiple agents coordinate on a single task. But but no, not covered in this.
That's cool. I like the idea of agents, getting on a group like a multi-way phone call together to get something done. That's pretty cute.
Yeah, and actually someone, again, Bark, I'm not sure what the whole of your, he made a good point in here, he or she made a good point that you can go and deploy private MCP servers. So your organization, there's nothing to stop your organization locking down an MCP server for production. And that's what you would do. And you would use keys, you'd use auth, you'd go and make them private, you go and do them on virtual private network if you're really concerned about these things. So you would absolutely be going and using them. There's absolutely no reason why you can't be using them in production. We're doing a lot of work around making that really easy, almost not quite point and click, but in that direction, and locking them down to make them secure. So yes. But in terms of the development environment, I still think you need to be worrying about risks. There was one we were talking about yesterday, wasn't there? Whereas the node attack, people using the post deployment script for node applications, and they put a payload on that. So stuff can happen, and you just got to be cautious. But if you've got building a production MCP server for an agentic style application, totally, you can absolutely lock that down, and you should, and companies should be absolutely looking at using those.
Yes, and potentially if you're considering using one, you could be trying to sandbox it, run it in a container so it doesn't have as much access to different areas. Might be some ways forward. Of course, you can be a little bit more loose with your private, own ones when you're well, we know what tools we allow, we've built it ourselves. But if you are trying out something else external, maybe that's one way to do it, to do essentially reduce the blast radius of anything if you are giving it a go, while of course try and delve into what's happening. But of course, when you receive things back, you're potentially opening yourself up to prompt injection attacks and things like that. So yes, but you can always put in place ways to look out for those kinds of things as well.
Or Dockerize can be useful.
Yes.
Use Docker to provide degree of isolation.
Absolutely. Pop that in a container and give it in the box. But that is all we have time for in this series. Big thanks to Dave for coming along and answering questions and providing his MCP expertise. If you haven't been following along with all the episodes, do go back and do chapters 1 through 5, as well as 6 and 7 from today. And do try the assignments that we do build up from chapter 1 through 7, which do follow along this book app analogy, like book app project that we've provided. And you can kind of really see how in real life you can interact using Copilot CLI to do your real developer workflows for like a real task on a real project. So I hope this has been valuable. I think we've got through all of your questions. Is that right, Dave?
We did. Yep. Let me
Fantastic.
just double check. I've been keeping an eye on them. Yep.
Dave's always all over the questions, which is fantastic. Yeah, watch this space. We'll have more content coming out soon. Hopefully I'm going to do something on the Copilot SDK, which is also very cool to take a look at. But yeah, that's all we've got for this time around. And thank you all for coming along. And yeah, I hope you all have a great time completing the Copilot Beginners CLI course. Yeah, thanks very much. And goodbye, everyone.
Take care, everybody. Cheers. Have a good weekend wherever you are in the world. Take care.
Thank you guys for joining us today. Like our presenters mentioned, there is more content coming up. And if for some reason you missed any part of this entire series, I did just pop a link in the chat where you can click on and you can catch up on all of the episodes that we have been running over the past 2 weeks. I also popped another link in the chat. We appreciate your opinion very, very much. So if you could please give us 5 minutes of your time to give us your feedback, your thoughts, your opinion about this series, about today's session, we will appreciate it very, very much. But with that being said, thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully, we will see you another time right here on the Microsoft Reactor channel. Thank you, everyone.